Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever and wherever you are. This is not Dave Kale welcoming you to the latest episode of the Film Project. This is Trish Lambert, the Lotro Maven, or as the Lotro Players News called me, the Master of Lotro.
There you go.
Yeah,
There you go.
I feel like I should walk crookedly with a staff in my hand and
yeah.
Anyway, this is Corey Olson, that voice you hear talking to me. That's Corey Olson, the Tolkien Professor, and we are here for another episode of the Film Project. Obviously, minus Dave, but
yeah,
we will try to make it.
We will, as usual, try to soldier through while Dave is off somewhere else being a responsible parent. So, we are back for session number 22 of season 4, and this is, I think, going to be our final creative content session. So the sessions that we have been interspersing betwixt our discussions of the plots of the episodes, in order to address various creative conceptual issues leading up to the final episodes here. So we're going to be thinking of in the primary topic for today, a topic we've been kind of postponing for some time, is dragons. We need to have our final dragon discussion today, and then next time we'll go on and do episodes 11 and 12. So, all right. Quick, before we begin, a couple quick announcements. We have our fall moots that are coming up. We have New England Moot on Sunday, September 29th, and we have Middle Moot on Saturday, October 12th, the first in Amherst, Massachusetts, and the second in Waterloo, Iowa. So we have the beginning of our 2019 to 2020 moot year beginning here, and I am super excited to get back into regional moots, which I have has really been one of the highlights of this past year for me. Our first full year of with our regional moot calendar. We did 8, I think, total moots last year. And looking to match that if we can, and be even be adding to it as we move forward. So anyway, that's going to be really that's going to be super fun. And of course, the first one is one of our new ones. Finally, we have our New England Moot together, where people have been asking me when I'm finally going to have a moot up here where I live, which you'd think would make it easier, but it doesn't. Anyway, so that's going to be really cool. So come on, New England in late September, it's going to be great. Anyway, so. Oh, and last other announcement that I wanted to mention briefly is classes start. So this coming Monday, right, just in a few days, like 4 days from now, is the beginning of the fall semester at Signum. So we have a new course for people who might want to, who might want to audit that course. To do a premiere audit, our Germanic Myths and Legends class. So that's going to be we did a class on Norse stuff before, but there was a lot of the sort of background legends and mythology that we didn't get to do in that class. So this is kind of coming back to those, and so many of the stories which meant so much to Tolkien are going to be discussed in that class. So it's going to be a wonderful opportunity. So that's one that you can audit. It's one of our new classes, so you can do a live audit of the lectures of that class. Of course, you could do a discussion audit as well, where you also participate in our discussion sections as well. So again, courses start up in Monday. So if you've been thinking about auditing, now is the time to take action on that front. All right. Let us talk about dragons. So the first dragon question we have is what should Glaurung look like? I almost called him Glorund, because of course that was his name in the Book of Lost Tales. That dragon has had many names, many changes or amendments to his name, and so sometimes I call him something else. But anyway, Glaurung. So the biggest question: should he be more snake-like, lizard-like, or crocodile-like?
Well, first of all, I got to say that the picture, I think, didn't Tolkien draw that one that's kind of in the upper right?
The bottom right, you mean? Well, so both of these two over here are his.
I'm not seeing here. Wait, why am I not
maybe
seeing?
you're not
Hold
seeing
on,
it at all.
hold
Maybe
on.
I'm
Here we
not.
go.
Oh yeah, hang on a
Okay.
second. Yeah, okay, sorry. I should probably. I know the people on
I was
Twitch
looking
see
at
it,
my own
but the
slides.
people on
There we
GoToWebinar do
go.
not. So there we go.
There we go.
Okay, yes.
There we go.
Um,
Okay, so I'm thinking it was the one over underneath the Mythgard logo. Not the one up in the title, but the one. Yeah.
yeah,
Those two
both
are
of
his?
these two.
Okay.
Both of these two.
So that one up on the top to me just looks way too happy. Looks like he's smiling. Doesn't he?
Yeah, well, you know, so
I like the orientally one in the middle. I think that's that's spooky. That's scary. And imagine that thing talking to you the way Glaron talks. Oh, wow.
Right. So here's the thing. I have to admit that I personally struggle with the dragon thing because I have myself never really liked the serpentine dragon. I've never been a fan of serpentine dragons. That is just, I don't know why. It must just have to do with like the first, the first books I read, you know, that kind of shaped my imagination of what a dragon, what a proper dragon should look like. Mm-hmm. And I suspect it's probably Dungeons and Dragons' fault because Dungeons and Dragons were, I think, really kind of formed my basis for what a dragon should look like. And those are not serpentine dragons as a whole. And I've never really liked the serpentine dragon. But here's the problem. Tolkien clearly does really like the serpentine dragon. I mean, you know, this is a Tolkien illustration here, you know, in the middle right-hand side of the image. You know, this sort of coiled serpentine thing all coiled in on itself. And
it's also kind of Celtic-like, right? A sort of Celtic-y design.
Yeah, exactly. His body seems to form a kind of Celtic knot, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Nahor, exactly. Nahor on the Twitch chat, you know, is talking about the reference to worms, right? And yes, there is clearly...
Right.
I mean, the word worm, of course, means dragon. It doesn't mean earthworm yet, but there's especially in The Hobbit, there's much play on that, you know. So, anyway... let's see. And now people are sending me links, which are challenging for me.
Well, it's funny they're doing that because I was kind of looking at wingless dragons myself, and there's quite a choice.
Yeah.
It's like the truth.
Yeah.
I almost sent you a link, but now I'm not going to.
It's okay.
Since people are sending you links.
Yeah.
I do. You know. Is Smaug is a winged dragon, and is he going to have sort of the traditional dragon shape?
Well, see...
So I guess what I'm thinking about is, would there be an evolution of body shape? Or would it be...
It's interesting, because now that you mention that, I realize that one of the dragons that formed my own visual imagination of what a dragon should look like was Smaug, of course,
right,
from The Hobbit. And I never envisioned Smaug, and I don't think I had any prompting for this. Like, I don't think that there's anything... I'm trying to think of like what else I was reading at that time when I was 8, which is when I first read The Hobbit, that would have influenced me to picture Smaug. But I pictured... That was long before I started playing Dungeons & Dragons, and yet... when I first looked at a monster manual and the pictures in the monster manual in D&D, that fit the visual picture I had of Smaug, whereas the kinds of dragons that Tolkien himself draws never did fit my picture of Smaug. And I think one of the reasons, I don't know, the description of the destruction of Lake Town always suggested to me a more ponderous body than the long, sinuous serpentine thing. Again,
Right.
like now this picture, the Celtic knot dragon, Trish, as you were describing, which I think is a great description of him. Clearly, I think the fact that he looks like a Celtic knot is like a little bit of a joke, right? I mean,
Right.
it's
Yeah, I agree.
I think there's
Yeah.
that picture is meant to be comical.
I mean, look at
in
his
part.
legs too. I mean,
Right,
come on.
exactly. So it's not like I think that we can look at this picture and be like, that's just how he pictured Smaug with those tiny little butterfly wings, stapled onto his back. Like, yeah, no, I that's clearly not. Those wings are not going to make are not going to make a hurricane,
Yeah, no.
right? Like Smaug
No.
describes his wings.
Right.
But yeah, it's I get thinking about Smaug's description of himself, the hurricane from his wings, the power of his tail. Like there's clearly a great deal of mass behind his tail. I never imagined something serpentine and merely whip-like, right? Because with like a...
And we know he has scales, right?
And we know he has scales. And with the description, with the Black Arrow moment, right? When his leg is flung wide, and the moonlight reflects on his chest. Again, that seemed to be more like proper legs, like real legs, more like this dragon in the lower left-hand corner is much more the body type that I imagined for Smaug and for dragons. I could see compromising with something like this one in the middle, this sort of bendy, more lizard-like, I guess, dragon.
That gold one in the center that looks actually, as I think Nick said, the face looks like the Smaug from the Hobbit movie. He's got longer limbs. He looks almost like he's got lion-like limbs.
Yes. I do like his limbs a little bit better than often what always seem to me rather perfunctory legs, which are often attached to like the serpentine Asian dragon.
Right. Because those, I mean, like some of these, like lizard-like dragons, they have lizard-like legs. They're very squat and
yes,
kind of off to the side. So I guess, Mike, is it worth asking the question? Do we want there to be, the only word I can think of is evolutionary, but take that with a grain of salt, connection between Glaurung and Smaug?
Right. How
I don't know that we need to. Yeah, I don't know that we need to necessarily, because we've got the R&D thing going on, right?
Exactly.
So, I mean, Glaurung could be okay, we abandon that design and go for another design. So they don't necessarily have to.
Yeah. I agree. Well, so actually, let's take this discussion back a point already.
Okay.
Which is one of the first things that we have to decide, I think. Oh, wait, hang on a second. I was just realizing that Chris Graham has probably put his finger on the thing that influenced me.
Aha!
Dinosaurs. That's what influenced me. I'm almost sure of it. I'm almost sure of it, because I was big into dinosaurs when I was like 5 and 6. I was huge into dinosaurs. And then I read Smaug. So it must be my mental picture of Smaug has to have been influenced by dinosaur pictures and dinosaur body types that I knew.
Right.
It's not that he looked exactly like, but I think that's one of the reasons why the like Asian really serpentine dragon
doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Didn't resonate.
Now, see, I'm in the same boat, because at the age of about 4 or 5, my first dragon was Maleficent when she turns into a dragon in the Sleeping Beauty animation.
Right.
And that's a Western Europe.
That's a proper dragon. Right? Yeah. No. Exactly. I didn't grow up with that. I saw it comparatively late. I sort of missed it in my early life. But I remember when the first time I saw it, I found it a very satisfying dragon at the end. Very much fitting my expectations in that way.
Yeah. I mean, it did. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, so sorry. Thank you, Chris, for mentioning the dinosaur thing, because that absolutely, I'm sure, must be what influenced me there.
And if you think of the Welsh dragon, now the Welsh dragon has wings, but if you think of the Welsh dragon without wings, it still is kind of a lion-esque type body, right? In its drawing.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Okay, so what I was going to say, taking it,
right. Where he says Tolkien was spit in his grave if we design his dragons based on Disney. Don't tell him.
yeah, don't tell. That's right. Yeah, yeah. It would be if it ended up looking like the dragon in Sleeping Beauty.
Oh yeah, no,
Which, of course, the
cannot.
one Disney film we know for a fact he saw.
Yes.
Then no, that would be a pure coincidence. Pure coincidence. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
He did.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
it was Snow White. Yes, yeah, exactly right. So sorry.
You're talking. You're talking to the expert here on that one.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Snow White.
That's right.
With C.S. Lewis.
Snow White is the one I was thinking. See, okay, here's me making mistakes about Disney films.
Well,
Anyway,
he may have seen it. I mean, he had a little girl in the household, so you never know.
Who we know was into the merch from Snow White.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so let us think then, as I say, sort of one step backward, and I don't mean historically, or I kind of do. I mean cause and effect wise. So we need to make a decision first about what exactly, what dragons are, how they come to be. Exactly.
Right. Chris Graham actually asked kind of very pointed questions, very good questions right there.
Yes,
about
exactly.
That very thing.
Are they independent creations of Morgoth, or are they descended from a common ancestor? Now, we don't. If we so basically there are a couple of questions here, right? And these are like issues that we've discussed for other things, right? When we talked about werewolves and other stuff, right? You've got the is this an animal which then gets sort of possessed or indwelt by an evil spirit of cunning and power?
Right.
Or is it an evil spirit of cunning and power which embodies itself, or which Melkor embodies in a body of, sort of their own construction? Or, something else. I mean, I don't think we were having this conversation about wizards, weren't we? Primarily. And with we're having a very similar conversation about wizards. That was in Silm Film, wasn't it?
I think so.
Having my traditional problem where I can't remember which series I was having which discussion in, but I think that was in Silm Film when we were talking about wizards and what the options for wizards are. I tend to prefer the animal with like sort of possessed by the or the evil spirit being sort of forced into or sort of trapped within, embodied within the body of a beast. Because again, one question is, does there need to be a beast? Are we starting with a beast, just an animal, even if it's monstrous, right? Because remember, we've still got those those monsters of horn and all of those beasts,
yeah,
right? That most of which were killed in that first battle, the war to begin all wars, but not all of them. I mean, we can always keep some of them around. Horn and hide. Yeah, that was the other word I was looking for, Marie. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, horn and hide. Yeah.
Horn and something or other. I know those, and they have something else besides horns. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, Nick points out that the Watcher in the Water seems to have made it through okay. Yeah, exactly. So when we show, to the extent that we do show anything of the dragon process, maybe we show the process later after the Glaurung reveal. That is when more dragons are being made down the road. Mm-hmm. Presumably, as we know, subsequent dragons at least do breed, and even Glaurung seems to breed. Therefore, it would seem that at some point Melkor had to develop a Mrs. Glaurung for breeding purposes. Yeah.
So Marie, we agreed that Melkor had access to prehistoric beasts in season 1.
Right.
So
Right.
certainly dragons could be based on dinosaurs. They don't have to be.
No, and when I say that, when I'm thinking about those old monstrous beasts and stuff that we had earlier on, I'm not using that to say like it should totally be, a dinosaur body type that we're working off of. All I'm saying is, do we want to have, are we imagining Melkor taking an animal and putting a spirit within it and modifying it perhaps in some ways? Just as the orcs were physically changed as well, right? When Morgoth took a hand there, or are we more imagining the physical form of the dragon being kind of built from scratch? Do you see what I mean by that?
Yeah.
I don't know that either choice necessarily forces us in one direction or another, because we could easily take a giant serpent, just a snake, like an enormous monstrous snake, which is then invested with this powerful evil spirit, and which he then changes, and it becomes more powerfully armored, and of course obviously it has now the spirit, the strength of will and the cunning mind, and the power of speech. But and of course the physical changes, so it could be a just a snake, like a giant snake which he gives legs to, and makes it, shapes it so that it becomes not only a serpent. Or we could have it be more a like I said, more of a dinosaur-ish type creature, something more lizard-like, something more in the giant lizard direction.
Like a chameleon.
Yeah.
With those eyes that go all over the place. I'm kidding.
Almost, but not much like that. Yes. Exactly.
Have we, this is probably, you guys are going to poo-poo this and boo me out of the room, but I mean, could it be one of the Maya that follow Morgoth that volunteer and say, put me in, coach, put me in?
See, I tend to think that Glaurung himself should be a pretty high-ranking dude. I don't think that Glaurung should just be a jumped up animal.
He's not like a pet or something. Yeah,
right, exactly. No, he's Glaurung is minimum, right? Minimum on the sort of social par of, Tevildo and Draugluin and Thuringwethil. Right. Maybe not quite at the Sauron level, but not far below him.
But pretty close, I would think.
Exactly. So yes.
I mean, I think that would make it pretty interesting. And also, a Maya would have that kind of ability to persuade and enchant and all that stuff. I mean, all the stuff that he does is pretty Maya-ish.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, I mean, certainly the level of intelligence and deviousness and the force of will, right? This is not just Glaurung is not just sentient, it's not just that this is a rational creature that can talk to you, right? I mean, he has a powerful will which he imposes on others, right? To look into his eyes is to risk.
Right.
I mean, and of course we see, the distant echo of this, in the, the very different frame of The Hobbit, right? With Smaug's rather overwhelming personality, right? That's an element of dragon lore, which clearly Tolkien was incorporating, this idea of the effect of the presence of the dragon and its ability to enchant and even to some extent to dominate your will.
Right.
As like Glaurung absolutely lays the whammy down on Nienor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And on Turin as well, right? When Turin is like frozen there, and all this stuff happens while he is like locked and immobile and things.
I think Nick has a really good idea, because it reminds me of what we did with Shelob, where we had Shelob originally in a different form. We met her in a different form.
Right.
He said, wouldn't it be cool if we introduced the character and watch his development into the guy who becomes Glaurung? So it's like this Maya is in a different form, and then he is the one that inhabits this new body, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it was a joke. I thought it was a good idea.
It is a good idea. The only issue, of course, is that it's a little late
We'd
in the
have to
game
retrofit it. Yeah.
yeah,
Now,
exactly.
the other
We
thought
have
I
to retrofit
had,
it.
and this is I'm really out there, is you know how when Saruman dies, we got the little wind, this thing comes up and the wind blows it away. Okay, Glaurung dies, something kind of similar happens, and lo and behold, when we see Smaug, there are some things that Smaug says that make us think, that's interesting. I wonder if it's the same Maya.
Whoa.
Now that might be like
Whoa.
way too far away from the canon to do.
Yeah,
but
well, see, because here's the other thing. So here's I have philosophical issues with Tolkien's dragons, I have to admit. And when I say issues, I mostly mean in a, like, I don't get it manner, not in a, like, I disagree with it manner. So here's my problem. My problem is that they breed intelligent children, right?
Mm-hmm.
We only have one example of an embodied Maya who breeds and who begets creatures like unto himself in, like, spiritual kind. You see what I mean?
Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about Melian, right?
You
Melian,
really threw me with that.
with the begetting, yeah, exactly, right, yeah. Sorry, because I'm thinking of Glaurung. But Melian is the only example that we have of somebody who breeds successfully that way.
Sentient children, because Shelob breeds.
Exactly. Now,
Children,
Shelob's children they can talk, right? They have. They're
true.
Rational, right? And I don't know. Maybe it's not different with Smaug. You know, maybe it's not different.
Oh, you mean as an offspring?
Right. Is Smaug to Glaurung really? I feel like it's different. I feel like Smaug to Glaurung is different than Mirkwood spiders to Shelob. That feels different to me. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's not as different as I think it is.
Well, that's one of the reasons I was kind of in love with this idea of a weakened Maya. The Maya that was in Glaurung becoming weakened as a result of dying, and then eventually, Smaug is that. Because then, like nobody said on Caligon the Black was smart. He's just a dragon. Nobody talked about it. He doesn't talk that we know of,
well,
right?
he doesn't get any wines, but he's not around for all that long.
But I mean, there's no intimation that anybody other than Glaurung and Smaug actually speak or have.
But again, the
smart.
fact that Smaug does is the thing that to me implies it, because he's a distant descendant, and so presumably he's not like a freak who like alone can talk of all. I mean, I think all the other worms talk too. No, in fact, we know they have to, because all of the. Think of all the sayings that Bilbo has gotten from his dad, all the stories that he's heard about dragons, all of which imply the same kind
they
of
talk.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Nick was
I
just saying the
guess
same thing.
we're talking about then its ancestry. I mean, this is like he will be the father of all dragons, basically. Kind of.
Yeah, no, Glaurung will be the father of all dragons. I like Rhiannon's suggestion that Mrs. Glaurung is just a monstrous animal.
Yeah.
And that's explicitly what we know Shelob did, right? Shelob mated with other monstrous creatures in spider form, and there's no clear sense that they were sentient like she. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so no, I would think that he
probably had to take a shower after. Oh, God. Actually, I figured Glaurung probably had a harem.
Right.
Creature.
Who, you know, I'm not sure I'm wanting to picture this. Actually, I think I've approached as close to the details
Okay,
of this
we've got as
situation
far as we want to
as
go
I
with
really
that,
want to
right?
go.
Okay. Boy, Dave should be sorry he missed this
Yeah, he
episode.
really will. Yes, as Marie says, let us draw a veil over the actual breeding program itself. But yes, the breeding with, if Mrs. Glaurung is another animal of the kind of the species that is the originator of Glaurung before he was invested with power.
Right.
That would make sense, and it would also make sense of why his offspring are lesser than he. They would have some of his spirit in them, but I mean, I think we just have to run with that. So, because let's think about this. We get so few examples of creatures of this kind breeding. Except that's not quite true, is it? Draugluin breeds. He's the father of werewolves.
That's right.
So, and Robert, I was thinking of the eagles too. We don't know about the eagles. We
don't really talk about that. I think we assume that Thorongil is an ancestor of the eagles at the Carrick, right?
Exactly. Yes. I always assume. I mean, but we don't know, right? We don't know whether or not, like, the eagles of Manwë, were they always plural? Like, did he just make a bunch of? Is Thorondor merely the greatest of the pack of eagles? Pack, probably not the right word, but but you don't have a flock of eagles though. That doesn't make any sense either. What's the word? Is there a collective noun for eagles? I don't even know. They're solitary birds, so you never use it.
They're solitary, I think. But, you don't even packs.
Squadron of eagles? Is that seriously, Robert? Is that really the word for it? That's kind of awesome if it is. Anyway,
that would be cool if it was.
So does Manwë make a? It's just a suggestion. I like it. So does he make an entire squadron of eagles?
They do air shows at the yearly festival.
But the first Eagle Squadron, you mean?
Yeah. Formation, they do like tricks in the air and stuff.
Yeah. Wait, Stephen says the plural of eagles is convocation. Well, that's interesting.
No, seriously?
Really? Convocation? No, Rhiannon
according
says,
to Wikipedia, a group of eagles is a convocation. Ooh, that's kind of cool. I like that.
Convocation.
Yeah. We'll have to remember that because that should be the name of one of our episodes that have eagles, a lot of eagles in it, like later on.
We should mention convocation.
Convocation. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I like that, of course, especially with the connection of Manwë.
I just learned that. I did not know
summoning
that.
them all together, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, but the question is, does Manwë, like the first generation of eagles, is Thorondor, is it just Thorondor at first and then he begets the other eagles, or does Manwë start with the whole convocation of eagles?
Well, the trend seems to be you start with some father. You got Durin, you got Thorondor, you got Glaurung, you got Shelob. It's like there's a single, there's not even a couple, it's just one.
Right.
And then they have kids. So I don't know. I mean,
this whole breeding with non-sentient animals thing seems to be, like
a thing.
What you do, right? When you're a solitary, magical creature,
smart animal. Yeah.
Exactly. This is not exactly online dating sites, for creatures in that situation. Yeah. So, yeah. And by the way, the answer to the question, is Gwaihir a first age creature? Yes. Yes, he is.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Gwaihir, Landreval, and Meneldor are there.
Are all first stage?
Like the same eagles, the exact same eagles that pick up Frodo and Sam from Mount Doom, pick up Beren and Luthien from the Gates of Angband.
I've met those eagles. I've done stuff for them.
There you go. I know, right? It's so fun to meet them in game, and it's such a celebrity moment.
Awesome.
But yeah, okay. So Robert, I agree. It does seem, and Robert's a great way to say it. Based on all these things that we've been reviewing, it does seem that sapience is inheritable in Arda. Spiders, eagles, dragons, and Ents. Now Ents, No, I mean, we have to put Ents in the same category because they're the direct parallel to the eagles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I tend to think that the dragons are something like a direct parallel to the eagles, right? In fact, I kind of like the idea of, I mean, we wouldn't exactly show this, but, Thorondor shows up. When Thorondor shows up, well, no, he would have met him before because we did have eagles involved in the first battle, right? Didn't we? In the first age, we had eagles involved there.
Yes, we did, I believe.
Yeah,
didn't
we did. Okay.
Yes,
All
we
right.
did. Yeah.
So, all right, because I was thinking if I was forgetting that, so I was thinking, hey, if Thorondor rescuing Maedhros and Fingon is the first time Melkor sees him, then that would be an interesting, like,
yeah,
him taking notes and saying, "I'm going to make me one of those." Except,
yeah, I want one of those. Hey,
very
I want to
nice.
just commend you for your graciousness. And when I called Thorondor Thorongil, you didn't say anything.
Hey, it's like, oh goodness.
Thorongil, Thorondor,
It's
potato,
pretty much,
potato.
It's pretty exactly pretty much the same thing.
But another thing, and I think we're saying this, but I just want to like be explicit about it. Okay, so we've talked about Glaurung being pretty darn close to Sauron in terms of where
Yes.
his station, right?
Yes.
So this means that this is not an R&D project of Morgoth, right? I mean, or it is to an extent, but then he becomes his own agent at some point.
Yes,
right?
he becomes. Yeah,
and I would say from that point on, his offspring would also be independent agents.
Yes, and not always super cooperative ones. Really.
Right.
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 I mean, even Glaurung himself is kind of, going off the script to some extent, I think.
And he's kind of a mercenary by the time we see him the second time, isn't he? I mean, he's been promised gold and
well, he's
stuff.
setting himself.
He did it for himself.
I don't know if I'd say mercenary, but certainly.
Warlord is what Nick says.
I mean, he's wanting to set up on his own and become a dragon king. So I mean, when he sets up in Nargothrond, he is doing. It's not like he's rebelling against Melkor or something at that point, but he is kind of doing his own thing, and
right.
And I could easily imagine, we don't have any direct evidence in the text that like Morgoth is, sending him messages like, dude, I told you to go do this other thing. Why are you still in Nargothrond? Like we don't know that he's actually deviating from the script exactly, but it seems pretty clear that he's pleasing himself, at that point in the story. And certainly
in contrast to Sauron, who's got his little island, but he still is very much Morgoth's, ally.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. So, yeah. Okay.
By the way, visually, I definitely am in love with having there be certain aspects of how Glaurung is in Nargothrond, like maybe he winds himself around the gold or something, that we echo in Smaug in the Lonely Mountain.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, we need to be those are our two big dragons with
very
their
nuancey
moments.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I mean, needless to say, in the Silm film, we're totally going to do Skath the Worm. We're not skipping over that story when we get there. So we'll have other dragon horde moments, conceivably.
Oh, good. Okay.
But you're absolutely right. These are the two big ones, and so yes, I think that we should be sort of self-conscious
and I should
about
mention to Phil Menzies that Smaug's theme should have little touches of Glaurung's theme in it for the music.
Yes, sure. Yeah. Rhiannon is asking a really interesting question. If Glaurung is a Maya, which of the Valar did he serve before joining Morgoth? And she suggests Mandos.
Oh, interesting. That's very interesting.
Interestingly, Rhiannon, my first thought when I saw your question was actually Lorien, because of the kind of what's the word? Psycho.
Spell equals dreams, enchantment.
I can't even think of the word. Yeah.
Neurolinguistic programming.
The word that means like leading the mind around. No, not psychotropic. Darn it. There's a word for this, and I can't remember the word.
You have at least 3 people looking it up on Google
yes,
at the moment.
Exactly. So. Anyway, I know there's a word, and that most of the time I know that word. But anyway, yes, because of the mental effects. That actually
makes sense. Yeah, you're right. That's true. Because I actually even been thinking Yavanna because of the animal piece, but no. I think either Lorien or Mandos is an interesting idea too.
Yeah, Mandos is an interesting idea. I'm trying to think of what would a Maya of Mike? What do the Maiar of Mandos do? Like, what's your a day in the life of one of the
Predictions 101.
Yeah, like do they prophesy themselves? Do
they practice, declaring their dooms?
Right. They can't be very talkative, you'd think, right? I mean, it's a relatively yeah.
That's true. Well, they would have work to do inside Mandos, the location itself, in terms of welcoming. They'd have to onboard newly dead elves, give them an orientation, show them around.
Yeah, orientation services, definitely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Cleaning the halls, dusting the tapestries.
Somebody's got to dust those tapestries.
That's
no question.
Right.
No
That's
question.
Right. Inventing ironic purgatorial duties for bad elves. I love it.
Right.
You guys are hot tonight. This is good. Right.
And Rachel, absolutely looking serious and saying everything like a proclamation. That's part of the orientation session for the Maiar as they're coming in, right? Like Mandos won't take you if you can't do like a serious and portentous face, right? I mean that's it's like in the entrance exam.
I think Mandos is Idris Elba or Mandos? I can't remember. I know we have him as a Valar, but I can't remember if it's. I think it's Idris Elba, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Yes, that's right. Gosh, season 1 casting. That seems like forever ago.
I know.
Can't believe I remember that. You realize that season 1 casting, I think that more time has passed since we did season 1 casting than the entire run of Riddles in the Dark. Just think about that. Anyway, okay. So,
but I'm pretty sure it's interesting because I remember having this mental image when we decided he was going to be Mandos. I literally had a mental image of him delivering the Doom of Mandos. It was like that would be awesome.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's great. Okay. But yeah, I kind of like Lorien. I don't know that it necessarily
Yeah, you're right, Rhiannon. Tapestry reading would be one of the things that they would do.
Yep, sure. Do
you like Lorien better than Mandos?
I think I do. Mostly because it's what I like about the kind of there seems to me a very attractive anti-parallel between what Glaurung does to people and what Lorien does to people, right? Lorien is the place of dreams and rest and healing, right? Where you come to enter this, space of peace and of health, and of growth and of recuperation, so you're kind of taken out of yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And taken into a place of, again, like peace, comfort. Glaurung takes people out of themselves too, but he takes them out of themselves in order to put them in a place of like horror and confusion.
Right.
And, the way that he brings not only, he is, certainly in Nianor's case, and even you could argue in Turin's case, he is like the bringer of, psychological disease, disorder.
Right.
So he is associated with like the unwellness of the mind, in a way which, exactly. So I that's why I kind of like that. I kind of like that parallel. In some ways, it's perhaps almost too much on the nose, but it's okay. I don't mind that. The kind of simple reversal that would be, especially since Lorien gets so little play anyway.
That's true.
Remember what Lorien does is not a terrible moment here.
No, that's true. That's true.
Not a terrible thing to do. And hey, it gives Phil an opportunity to bring out his Lorien, dust off his Lorien theme, which
that's right.
That's
right. So I'm a little just a itty bitty still stuck on the Eagles. Let me just ask this question. So do we think Lauren knew those guys over in Witchamhoozy?
Had to.
Yeah. So they were buddies from back then, right? I mean, that's how he knows them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Had to have. Yeah. Which does really put Gandalf's friendship with the Lord of the Eagles into context, right? They go way back. Yeah, way back. We've been hanging since the Timeless Halls, basically.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the music.
Yeah.
Right. Not quite. Well, maybe no, after the music, but yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Yes, exactly. So okay. So I think we need to. Now, we've done this already once with Bulldog, right? In the case of Bulldog, and I guess we did it before too with Draugluin, maybe. Did we do werewolf creation on screen? I don't remember if we did werewolf creation on screen, but I know that we did we did Bulldog.
Says we did.
So we already have precedent for so the Bulldog precedent has established the fact that there are various other spirits, other dudes, right, lesser than Sauron, who are allies with and helpers of Morgoth. We're not following all of them, right? But and we don't even see all of them necessarily. But there's more people involved there, right? Okay, so bringing forward another one of them, like we brought forward one who was Bulldog, bringing forward another one who's going to become Glaurung, not impossible, right? We have some precedent for that. We'd want to make it look a little different, of course, but that's not too hard given the difference between Bulldog and Glaurung, right? Glaurung is so much more of a free agent than Bulldog. Bulldog is like the ultimate thug soldier, right? So he is really just designed to be a captain of the armies, whereas the sort of relationship or dialogue with Glaurung in the recruitment process would be more complicated. Rhiannon suggests Glaurung could be a new convert to Morgoth to explain why he wasn't in earlier seasons. Rhiannon, one of the things that I like about that is that I like the idea of that being non-static. We need to show that, right?
That's a good point.
I mean, like we know, for instance, Saruman, right, very famously is going to, we're going to see him fall into evil. So it is certainly not like, everybody who's ever going to ally himself with Morgoth is already there, right? So yes, the idea that there are people who are joining the dark side all the way through progressively, it's not a bad idea, I think, to remind our audience that that's a thing that happens. Now Stephen is asking about the process being secret and stuff. Keep in mind, I'm not yet talking about what we show. All of this stuff that I'm talking about here, I am talking about our imagining what happens, right? Then we can make the decision about how much we actually want to put on screen. So for now, I don't want to, I'm just trying to think about the process itself and not, and then we can think about that process afterwards. Okay. So let's imagine he's a new convert. He's a new convert from Lorien's crew, and and actually, Rhiannon, the other thing that I really like about that is that he's going to be a pretty major hitter, right? I mean, he's going to, like I said, I mean, I think he's right below Gothmog and Sauron, right? Gothmog and Sauron have been the two primary, the primary lieutenants of Morgoth, and Glaurung is going to be, not quite at their level, but just below their level and above the level of like the other Balrogs or of, Thuringwethil and Draugluin. So, yeah. Nick says he strikes me as the sort of guy who might even have left Irmo out of boredom. Yeah, this place is lame. I'm blowing this place, going over to Middle Earth where it's fun. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Chris Graham is suggesting maybe he was converted to Morgoth during the time when Morgoth was freed in Valinor. Certainly, that's a good opportunity. Yeah, Nick, having some kind of flashback incident, maybe at the start of an episode or something where we show, the early history of the, the conversion process of Maya Glaurung, could totally work. I could see us doing that. Maybe you choose not to do that, but I could imagine our choosing to do that later on in order to show more clearly who he is and who he comes from. Because, of course, one of the risks of not showing any of this in advance, of having the real surprise of Glaurung that we were talking about, is that one of the downsides, as I say, is that the risk is he's just going to look like a monster. He's going to look like a beast in that first encounter, right? By the end of season 4, when he comes breaking out, and the thing we have to be careful of is to not make it just look like he's an irrational animal, But anyway, but again, we will talk about the disclosure of this stuff, about the reveal afterwards. But first, let's just work it out ourselves. Okay, so I like this idea. We've got this, the Maya who will become Glaurung, and he is a Maya of Irmo in Lorien, and he comes over to Morgoth relatively recently. Marie suggests maybe he was impressed by the eclipse or something. Yeah, maybe he sees what Morgoth is doing in Hildorian and is interested in that. I don't know. But anyway, okay, so Glaurung is in the fold. And
we need to be seeing some dragonish stuff like greed, or at least the start of it, right?
Yes,
you think?
The things which are like the dragon sickness elements, right? Those things which are
exactly.
Archetypally, characteristically, signature dragon things do need to be signatures of Glaurung's character,
of his personality. Yeah.
Yes. Those should all be ways in which dragons are taking after their father. Absolutely. So, okay. Rhiannon, I'm surprised it took this long. Rhiannon was saying that Glaurung could explain how he was converted to Morgoth's side to Angrod. And that's, yeah, absolutely.
I am surprised it took that long.
Yeah. Now, Chris, I agree. I agree that Glaurung is his dragon name, and he should probably have a different name when he is a Maya. That yes. He undergoes a name change absolutely should happen. I'm calling him Glaurung just for now because that's how we think of him. But yes, I would be totally. I think if you guys wanted to come up with a Maya name for him, like back when he was a Maya of Irmo, that would be
kind of cool too. Might be a like a light side translation of some quality of his that in fact on the dark side turns into dragony stuff. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. No, we do need to make sure that there's a sensible, kind of root of those things, right? that he doesn't just. Again, this is one of the things that we've been trying to do well so far in the Film Project, which is to show falls well, to show how they make sense, how a person can do it, not to do the, like, I'm going to just embrace being evil and, suddenly start killing the younglings, right? We need to be more thoughtful than that. So yeah, thinking about his backstory more, we do need to think about his character before, but I don't want to get too distracted with that right now, because one way or the other, that's so not coming up in this season. I think, like, whatever we do with Glaurung, we're not getting his full backstory in this season. Like, I just don't, unless we wanted to do an aside, unless y'all decide that, like, episode 12 would be great to start that way or whatever, I don't really see the need. But anyway, okay, so we don't do that for now. But Rhiannon had a good suggestion, which I'll just mention, that maybe it was desire for the Silmarils.
Ooh, interesting.
That would lure him to Morgoth after,
it certainly would.
Not necessarily, and maybe he could even be trying to convince himself that he would. Maybe he was coming to. Maybe he came to Middle Earth first to telling himself that he was going to try to, like, steal back the Silmarils.
Yeah.
Right. So he was convincing himself that he was like a double agent, and he was going to come over, and it was still all for the greater good, and he was going to return to Valinor.
Very ring-like.
Yeah, he was going to return to Valinor with the Silmarils and, hand them over to, Yavanna and it was going to be great. But of course, like, really it was his own personal desire for the Silmarils that was really driving him, and he was fooling himself, and Morgoth plays on that. And
I think, Nick, the obsession with treasure starts before the transformation, and it gets amplified.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That, like, because everyone loves the Silmarils. Who doesn't love the Silmarils, right? I mean, all of the Valar and the Maiar admire the Silmarils and think they're wonderful.
Right.
So there's nothing evil about that, right?
Exactly, Chris. The original dragon sickness.
The original dragon sickness, exactly. So to have, to have there to be. I mean, I really kind of like it. Think about what. And of course, the classic moment that everyone is familiar with this kind of thing is Eustace in The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, right?
Right.
It is, and that of course is echoing Fafnir from originally from Norse mythology, but the whole original concept is that, like, dragons aren't just associated with the greedy desire for treasure. It is the greedy desire for treasure that turns you into a dragon in the first place, right?
Yes.
So if we could kind of show that, if we kind of parallel that, that his own spirit becomes dragonish, right? In that same way, so that we can kind of make that parallel. So the Glaurung spirit is like Eustace Scrub done in much higher proportions, basically.
Right.
Anyway, okay, so that's awesome. So here I was trying to change the topic, Rhiannon, but then you came in with this brilliant suggestion right in time. So there you go. Anyway, okay, so let's imagine that. So he comes over. Morgoth says, "Hey, okay, well, this is interesting because, of course, we're just discovering that orcs unaided are totally not going to do the trick, right? We had this plan. This didn't work out. I really want to up our game over here. I've been looking at those eagles and thinking that looks like a good idea. I've heard stories about these Ents. That seems like a good idea too. So let's do this. Let's see if we can, and it would be, in a sense, you could see this as a progression, right? Draugluin being the first kind of necromantic experiment by Sauron, right? He's the first, the Lord of Werewolves. So Draugluin is like, in version 1.0 of this sort of project, right? Bulldog then becomes version 2.0 of this project, and then Glaurung is 3.0. So he is much greater, right? So having done this already a couple times, now Morgoth wants to step it up more. And of course, this could be another opportunity to show Morgoth weakening himself, right? Investing much of his own spirit into Glaurung itself. And by the way,
yeah, that's true.
I could also see it as a very Morgoth kind of thing to do. He would know that the spirit Glaurung wants the Silmarils for himself, that he lusts for the Silmarils. And he, Morgoth, would have no truck with that, right? Because he has claimed the Silmarils for himself. So on the one hand, he would exploit Glaurung's desire for the Silmarils in order to complete his corruption, right?
Right.
But then after he's completed his corruption, I think he would want to punish him for seeking, for desiring, for his intention to steal the Silmarils from Morgoth. And so I would think that Morgoth, as a kind of punishment, retribution, right, putting Glaurung in his place, would, in the moment when he becomes a dragon, would like fill him with this, basically be cursing him, right, with this never-ending, this never-ceasing desire in lust for treasure, which will never be filled and never be satisfied.
Right? Is that right? Without surcease.
Yeah,
is that the right way of saying it?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
It's completely like in line with just what Morgoth would do.
Yeah, exactly. I think that would be exactly. JJ says, if any punishment could be greater than seeing them in Morgoth's hand. Exactly. Exactly. Yes. Now, Rhiannon asks, where would the fire breathing come from? That's an excellent question. Maybe, Rhiannon, maybe that's Morgoth's gift. Maybe that's how we can show Morgoth investing himself, right? The evil will, the manipulation of other minds, the manipulation and domination of other minds, all of that stuff, that's like Glaurung's native thing, right? That's his native power. The fire, the association with fire, the breathing of fire is
so that would be the piece of Morgoth,
the piece of Morgoth that he puts into him. Especially since, yes, we were suggesting that Morgoth was primarily associated with fire before.
That's got to be
Nick,
an
I
awesome
like
scene.
that. Nick just says we could do Morgoth breathing fire into him, like a twisted version of God breathing breathing the breath of life into the nostrils of Adam. I like that. I like that a lot.
The scene is going to be awesome. Morgoth's going to have some awesome dialogue in this.
Yes.
I mean, I could just see him doing this, almost like you thought you could come and do this, and I was on to you the whole time, and now this is going to happen to you, and the curse is going to be awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that would be at the end, right? So he would start off with just like like blessing upon blessing, like I shall make you strong, and you shall unleash fire, and you shall have my fire, which you shall unleash on our enemies, and you shall be one of the greatest of my servant. And then as a writer, right? He's like, oh, and P.S. I curse you with this unquenchable desire, which you will never fulfill. And yeah, exactly.
That's right. For even having the least thought of taking the Silmarils.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And Nick, exactly. It does explain how Morgoth and Glaurung are not like on the same page from day one, right? I mean, like what we're going to see at the end of season 4 is Glaurung misbehaving, right? Yes, definitely.
Michael is crossing the streams here. He says breathing fire is Morgoth's spiritual boulders.
Exactly. Just as Gandalf amplified the flood with the spiritual boulders. So that is exactly perfect parallel, Michael. Yeah. I had to explain the spiritual boulders to Matthias this week because people have made a couple spiritual boulders jokes in the chat during his stream, and he was so confused. And I'm like, let me explain the whole spiritual boulders thing.
Yeah, anybody that hasn't exploring Lord of the Rings, I think there's several episodes actually that cover the spiritual boulders.
There are. It comes up a couple times. It's a Ford of Bruinen, the flood at the Ford of Bruinen.
It is going
issue.
to stick to you like that poor dead Huorn's going to stick to Grifflet.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm fine. Yeah, cool. Excellent. Marie is saying she spent this session making jewelry, probably for the first time in my life, and she's now going to get a complex about this. Yes, maybe we shouldn't, Maria, have chosen this episode to talk about, the lust of treasure and, yeah. Don't. It's okay, Marie. You won't turn into a dragon. Probably. You probably won't turn into a dragon. Okay, cool. So, all right. So, where was I? Oh yeah. So I'm getting a clearer picture here. So okay. So Morgoth has the guy, right? Morgoth has his. So he's got the spirit, and he finds a beast, right? He finds and he does the thing, right, where he embodies the volunteer spirit, who is not yet named Glaurung, and he embodies him in the body of this creature. Now, what does this creature look like? And what does he look like? And how much does he change? Because he can change physically. He can change physically at the moment of transformation there.
You're talking about the beast itself could change.
The beast itself can physically change, yes. So we don't have to have like an exactly Glaurung the dragon-shaped beast, which then just gets invested with mind and will. This can be, I wouldn't want it to be something like, he takes a perfectly mundane garden snake and like transforms it into a dragon. Like, I'm not saying something like that, but
I was thinking it would already be a big beast of some kind, right? Large. Size-wise, it would be still big, right?
Well, okay, so as we're making a final decision, as we're finally pushing to a final decision on the question we started with this episode with, namely what will Glaurung look like, what will dragons look like in general, let's make sure we think through here what they need to do so we can think more about their body type. We need them to be able to pummel and destroy Lake Town, right? We need them to be able to be large and strong enough that they could single-handedly take out Erebor, right?
Right.
We need them to be sufficiently long of body that he can kind of hump himself across the chasm where Turin is underneath, right?
Uh-huh.
Now we can contrive that in different ways, manipulating the chasm, but it has to have really thick hide that resists piercing. It does need scales. It needs... Do we want it to be... So Glaurung on the battlefield. And Nick, this comes back to that comment.
Does he move swiftly? Is he a fast mover on the ground?
That's exactly the thing. I don't think we want... So, most of the time, I have to admit that most of the time he is described, I get the impression of him rather lumbering than quick. Most of the time we see him... Most of the time we see him moving. He's not super fast. He can move quickly. Like, I'm thinking of when Turin stabs at him, he pulls himself back really quickly. He dodges.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that he has to be fleet of foot. He does run ahead of the flames in the Dagor Bragalach Rhiannon, but there he can build up a head of steam. That doesn't, he can get rumbling downhill at a pretty fast pace without necessarily being quick and agile.
And that wouldn't necessarily be representative of his normal pace.
Right. Right. Yeah, so the more I think about it, the less the kind of really rapid, almost twitchy movement that like a small lizard can do doesn't seem like
No.
Glaurung. Yeah, he does definitely need to be able to shuffle. I mean, we can't make him like waddling along in front of the flames of the Dagor Bragalak like a crocodile. I know crocodiles can move pretty quickly, but not for miles and miles and miles.
I would also think that he's big enough to even just taking like one step or a set of steps, he covers an enormous amount of, length just because of his size.
Yes.
He
I also think I also think that his belly does not drag on the ground.
right.
I think that you could, I mean, I think there should be some clearance between his body and the ground. Yeah. So again, I'm thinking, but at the same time, I don't want to totally indulge my early dinosaur informed conception of a dragon at the expense of Tolkien's obviously more serpentine conception of a dragon. I'm not saying that I think that we need necessarily be totally bound by the serpentine dragon, and I genuinely think that the purely serpentine dragon, or almost purely serpentine dragon, does not seem to fit very well what is often described by Tolkien in his stories. In particular, it is much harder for me to imagine a purely serpentine dragon doing to Lake Town what Smaug does to Lake Town. But yeah.
Here, check out. I'm putting something into chat here, and it's the second image that's on. Oh crumbs! Okay, that should be it right there. I hope. Hold on. Yes, that is it. I just accidentally.
Yeah. Now, Robert, we do get. Right
there.
Robert is reminding us of the, Tuor seeing a slot like a huge furrow that passed away southward. He does leave a slot behind him. But first of all, I would say that doesn't necessarily need to mean a slot in the grass, again, like he's dragging on the ground. Like there would be a slot in bushes and trees. But the second thing, and this, by the way, so this painting, this Glaurung painting that's in the bottom right-hand corner, this Tolkien painting, was at the New York Tolkien exhibit when I went there this past spring. And my favorite thing about this is the desolation, because you can see the trees right around Glaurung are completely dead, and the ones a little further away are dead on the sides facing Glaurung, but still green on the far sides of the trees, right? So you can see this sort of withering effect. So Robert, when I imagine the slot that Glaurung leaves behind, he totally leaves a track, not because I think he is forcing himself along the ground and leaving like like he's
a belly.
like churning up literally a furrow in the ground. It's like a huge furrow, right, seen from a distance, but it's not an actual furrow in the dirt that he's leaving. Instead, what you're seeing is like dead this slot of dead vegetation, which certainly from a distance would look like a furrow.
Well, the second image on that link I just put into chat, it's interesting because it's got a pretty like non-lizardy body, but there's a long tail, and that tail could also, be leaving a furrow.
Right,
do you see that in there? You see it in there, right?
Let's see if I can get this and put it on my screen. Okay.
It's the second image. Unfortunately, the image itself doesn't have its own URL, so.
Okay, let's see. Second image. Oh wait. No, I'm getting the second image. I'm getting one looking like a bird. Oh no, second
Um,
scrolling down. Sorry.
so scrolling down. Yeah. Right.
Uh,
Right. Right.
Hang on a second. Let me find that there.
Sorry, I'm making you
Okay,
do.
got it. All right. Hang on a second. Let me pull this over.
You're gonna do some magic.
Well, not exactly, but okay. Here we go. So these are two things. First, this is a Spinosaurus, which Nick was suggesting as an example of something with a
Interesting.
sort of low slung but ground clearance. So just
Right.
we wouldn't do the spine on top, I wouldn't think, but no, and it's so you wouldn't have to look exactly like this, but just body shape.
And prehistoric overtones, it's probably not a bad idea. Yeah.
And the dragon that you were suggesting is this
Yeah.
one. Yes.
That looks kind of interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely okay with certainly a very long tail, right? Something sort of worm-ish. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Hang on a second. Let's see if I can get another one.
A rage drake.
There you
Interesting.
go. Oh yeah, there we go. It's, good. Robert's link there is a direct link to this image, actually.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
Okay, so yeah, now this looks. I think this is a little too much ground clearance for me. His legs look almost feline. You know what I mean? Like in the way they're jointed and things. Like it looks like he would move like a cat. Which I think is not. I think I would want him to be a little bit more lizard-like than. JJ2 was saying it looks kind of feline. Yeah. Okay, let's see. All right, hang on, Nick. I'll try to get your Rage Drake in here, which looks.
We may have to vote on dragons the way we vote on cast members.
Ah, yeah. There's the Rage Drake from D.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Again, very feline, especially in the legs, especially. That's a little too much leg for me. Again, this body type doesn't say reptile to me. It's the body plan here really looks more feline, I think. Now this dude's front legs are a little not quite. I'd like a little bit more leg than that. But anyway, like I don't even know how well that dude stands or walks on his little
on tippy toes.
Yeah, that's a little odd. But anyway, yeah, something like so. Like if his front legs were just a little bit longer, you could definitely imagine something like this trotting along at a pretty good clip, right? But I don't think that he would be whip-like fast with his body. I could go for a general body plan like this, I think. Body tending to be more sinuous and long, but not exactly snake. A little more bulk than pure snake. Legs such that he can hold himself up. It would have to be, again, we have to imagine him with his front legs on one side of the chasm and his back legs on the other side of the chasm. As for how Glaurung, comports himself in battle, I think he would be more tank than speed. Again, he can move along, but I don't think he would be like sudden rush out of nowhere kind of attack. I think that he would be more the. I think that his role in battle would be more like a tank than like Yeah, something that's moving fast. Yeah. Bree is offering to just live draw for us until we land on the design in our heads. Yeah, I don't know, something like that. Chris, I would think he would be ground support for orc troops. So, like, Chris, what one of the things that I imagine in the Dagor Bragalach, right? I can imagine lines of elves, right? Shield and spear lined up and looking super impressive, right? Awesome armor, and they're just like, they are an impenetrable wall that like no orc is going to be able to break through. And then Glaurung comes charging out of the flames and just busts through their line. He just comes through like a ram, not like a sheep ram, like a battering ram, and blows open a hole in their line, and the orcs come pouring in after him. That's the kind of role that I can see him playing. Yeah. Well, Nick, I hear you. Nick wants something to distinguish their role from that of Balrogs and trolls. To me, Nick, the prime thing there is the fire breathing, right? The fire breathing gives him a kind of missile, ranged effect that trolls certainly don't have, other than possibly throwing rocks, which is just not the same. So yes, Rachel, with his fire, he would be more like artillery, short range artillery, than like cannon. Yeah. Now, Rhiannon, I agree with you. All right, hang on a second. I was about to agree with you, Rhiannon, but I want to pause first. Does he grow? Is he a juvenile? Like, really juvenile? How are we going to handle that? I guess, because honestly, it seems to me a little weird for Morgoth to be like, okay, Mr. Recruit Maya, I'm going to like put you in a baby lizard and you'll grow up. Don't worry, you'll grow up, right? Like, that seems a little strange to do. Yeah, no, I know it says he's not grown to his full strength. I'm just trying to decide exactly what that means. Because again, I can't imagine Morgoth actually making him like really a juvenile. Like, here's this adolescent monster. I'm going to, I'm going to put you in this adolescent monster's body. And then we'll watch you grow up and it'll be adorable. That doesn't make much sense. Again, I'm not trying to depart from what the text says there. That needs to be true. I think that's fine. Yeah, Rachel, something more like him adjusting to his new form, or, I mean, we can show the process as being gradual. That is the process, the changes that happen to the body of the creature, right? So maybe, for instance, he doesn't have his hide, for instance, is not scaly and hard at the beginning. Maybe it's more leathery at first. And it's like in this process of, I don't know, sort of upgrading. Exactly, Robert. Robert says the scales are an aftermarket add-on, and he didn't finish the procedure yet. Exactly, something like that. Yes, Rhiannon, exactly. So he's in a full-grown body, and Morgoth is investing him with more power over time. Yes, exactly. So we could have several stages in the process. Stage 1 is the investment in the more sort of lizard-like body, not the really hard scales, not the really hard scales, maybe not the fire even yet. Do we need him to breathe fire? in this first battle? Do we need that?
That's a good
We
question.
probably do. Morgoth could start with that.
And if he does breathe fire, is he going to be good at it in the
Right.
first battle?
Okay, yeah, we did kind of want him to burn down trees. No, that's fine. We can. So that can be, so phase 1, right? He puts him in the monster, and the monster maybe gets bigger and, uglier and stronger, like more physically powerful, but he still has like leathery skin, and he invests him he invests him with fire breathing abilities, right? So that's like sort of phase 1. And in fact, it can be in direct response to, it can be in direct response to the attacks of, the successful attacks of Fingon, that he ends up getting scales, right? So they upgrade him there later on. Yeah, no, he's totally a real threat, Nick. I think physical size, I think he should be similar to that. Maybe he gets a little bit bigger, but no, he would be definitely large, and he would be fire breathing. Fine with having that at the beginning, and then they upgrade him. JJ says Morgoth hooked him with the starter kit, but didn't tell him about the expansion packs he'd have to buy. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and I'm fine, Nick. So I am fine with upgrading him from real threat at the end of season 4 to, monstrosity, like terrifying monstrosity in the Dagor Bragollach, and the armor that he has can be part of that. I mean, he's going to look different and really imposing, right? And I have an idea. What if he changes color too? That is, like, at first he's kind of maybe just kind of dark, right? And he gets yeah, exactly, he's sort of drab at first, and then when he gets his armor, he not only is like now I'm more scaly, right, but he's also like, he's resplendent, he's gorgeous, like, and really imposing, more like these gold scales going on here in this in this Asian dragon here in the middle. That I think is pretty cool. Yeah, no, not armored like a lobster, Robert. I'm thinking something like that, like overlapping plates. He's got to still have scales, right? But scales that look like overlapping. They can look metallic, almost like armor, right? And again, so when you think about the language of the book does imply growth, right? Like he's getting older and growing up. And of course, we already have a parallel to that in Smaug, right? Who was just a young dragon and tender, right? And now he's, strong, and now he's old and strong, as he boasts to Bilbo. But Smaug had the advantage of actually being born or hatched, or whatever dragons are done. Are they oviparous or viviparous?
That's a good question. I think they're oviparous.
You think they're oviparous?
Mm-hmm.
I guess dragon eggs are kind of a traditional thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fairly common trope.
Hagrid, right?
Hagrid
Didn't he have an
needs
egg?
a dragon egg. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay, they can be oviparous. It's fine. So again, Smaug, unlike Glaurung, Smaug came out of an egg, right? Yeah. Okay, so let's yeah, I think dragon eggs are a pretty well established trope, so we'll say they're oviparous. Anyway, okay, sorry. So will that satisfy? Do you guys think? Will that satisfy the upgrades? I mean, I don't want to make it look too video gamey, right? I don't want to make it look like, and now, like, he went back and got some swag and improved his gear and his armor class, and now
He leveled up.
Right, exactly. We don't make it look campy like that. But anyway, I think that we can make it. But anyway, the point I was making about the Silmarillion language there is that certainly that's going to be, whether or not he is in fact growing from juvenile form to adult form, that is certainly how it's going to look to the elves who only meet him twice, right? Once when he is smaller and more vulnerable, and then later when he is larger and more impressive and fully armored. So yeah, I think that there, someone describing that is going at least is certainly going to use a metaphor of growth, at least. Okay. Good. So let's see. Yeah, I agree. The folks of Nargothrond would love to have met him only twice. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay. So I have now totally forgotten what our next slide is about. Oh yeah, something different. Okay, so last question then. What do we want to show or not show with Glaurung? What do we want to show or not show? Do we... yeah, I definitely agree. Less is more. I'm fine with the you know, the having a shocking reveal when he finally comes out. You know, having the recruited spirit gives us an opportunity here. There had been discussion. Several people on the discussion boards were arguing for wanting to hear Glaurung speak, like wanting to overhear conversations or hear them talking about it or something like that. We could accomplish that without spoiling the surprise at all by just introducing them to the Maiar character earlier in this season, right? If at some point they're like, hey, like, new recruit, here's this guy, right? And we could meet him. We can see him on screen. It wouldn't be hard. Again, the Maya who's going to become Glaurung, right? You know, proto Glaurung, the Maiar dude, can show up, and he can show up in like anthropomorphic form. Why not? Right? He could do that. So we can. In fact, it might kind of set up the surprise kind of interestingly, right? Morgoth could hint, right, that there's a new, you know, that like there's this new weapon, like there's this new ally that he is going to unleash upon the elves, and then we meet him and he's not super impressive, right? I don't know.
By the way, I know we already have one of these, but I honestly think the person who turns into Glaurung needs to be a ginger.
Sauron's already a ginger.
I know.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking fire, you know.
No, he shouldn't be, because he only gets the fire. The fire's
he gets the fire. Oh, okay. So he should maybe be like Keanu Reeves. That would be good.
He's not Keanu Reeves. Not Keanu Reeves. Like Keanu Reeves, except not. In fact,
except not
Keanu Reeves.
Oh,
yeah.
You're no fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, Nick, I know you've already done the plots for all the earlier episodes, but like, you know, it's no big thing, right? To go back and like add the add in stuff. Right?
You know, there are rewrites. That's the way it rolls.
Exactly. Yeah, we can be flexible with this. I don't know. Anyway, whatever. The point is, what I'm saying is, I'm not necessarily advocating for this. What I am saying is, I remember there were lots of suggestions that people on the discussion board were making about like overheard conversations and like hints and foreshadowings of what was to come. And I think it would be kind of cool to have, like, we know that he is going to, we know that Morgoth has a plan. We know that his plan involves the new guy, right? Whose name is not Glaurung yet, right? It's something else, right? We get introduced to this guy and Morgoth is like, it's okay. I've got a plan and this guy is the plan. And the audience is going to be like, dude, what does this guy bring to the table, right? What, you know, it'll be kind of mysterious and kind of, you know, we'll really be sort of wondering. And then all of a sudden, wham, right? You know, like the dragon comes on screen and breathes fire, and we're like, whoa, dude, okay. So yeah, that I think would be cool, right? That would be a way. All I'm saying is that's a way that we could kind of have our cake and eat it too, right? That is, we could both introduce Glaurung, you know, earlier to his reveal at the end without ruining the surprise of the reveal. So if we wanted to do that, that's a way that could be done. That's what I'm saying. Yes. You're right, Nick. If we did that, it would be like the dragon was part of this season's plot arc. Yeah, it would almost look like that, or at least we could contrive to make it look like that. Now, I agree, as with Chris Graham, that, you know, as Tolkien fans, and even, of course, further as people who are undertaking a creative project based in Tolkien's world, we should really be good with retconning, right? You know, this is a thing we should be willing to be flexible about. But anyway, okay. So that's the last suggestion I wanted to make about Glaurung, that I think that his character could be introduced that way and integrated. We could work him into the Angband subplot of the season in that fashion without giving anything away. That was always, to me, the biggest issue. I didn't want to have too many hints, you know, and I thought it would be kind of a little much to have him just like speaking out of the darkness or something and never being seen until the end. That could be done, but I wasn't a really big fan of that. But this would be a way in which would be interesting, because we won't know the form in which he takes until the end. Okay. All right. Let me just run through a couple other things relatively quickly. We're going to end soon. But naming of extras. So we've got some suggestions for 2 important minor characters. Bard's wife. So there are lots of things here. I kind of like my favorite choice here would be Ragna or Ragni. This one is my favorite. As if I recall correctly, the role that we were envisioning for her was more along the line of like wise woman, that she would be the primary counselor for Bard. So I kind of like the name, that name there. So Hakon's suggestion, of course it was. Hakon has such good taste. So yeah, no, I like that. So Ragna or Ragni would definitely be my choice. Ragna, I think, but it would be my favorite, but either would work. Celeborn's sister, Galathiel. I like the Gala stem in there explicitly. So yeah, Galathiel would be my choice. It's a little close to Galadriel, which, you know, might... let's see, yeah, exactly. So Marie says Galathiel is on the family tree as the brother, right? Yes, I'd forgotten that, but yeah, sure. So yeah, that or a version of that sounds... I think that would be great. Okay, now we need names. Well, I'm not going to be able to come up with names on the spot. For Anail's wife and son, Caranthir's wife, Maglor's wife, if she's not in Valinor. Yeah. And a random dwarf of Belgast who is with Telkar. Right. Now, I'm kind of thinking the random dwarf of Belgast who is with Telkar can be dwarf number 2 in the credits. I mean, I don't know that he needs to be named on screen. Nor am I sure. I mean, unless we're going to make of him a character. I mean, unless this is going to be, you know, Telkar's disciple who will become an important craftsman in the future. You know, if we want to have that, but that's only if we need that. Are we going to need another named dwarf craftsman after Telkar? I mean, we're going to have other interactions with dwarves, but I'm not sure that we need another artifact maker. You know what I mean? So in other words, like, I am not really sure that we need a name for him. I think we only need a name for him if he's going to become a character in his own right in like the next dwarvish generation. Yeah. Well, Nick, I'm totally open to having actual dwarf plots. And that's something we can certainly be thinking about. I mean, we have, if you think about the total dwarf action that we're due in the rest of the Silmarillion, it's comparatively small, right? We've got the big thing, which is, of course, the destruction of Doriath and the murder of Thingol. We've, of course, got the whole meme situation, which we've already talked about to some extent. Again, we have the dwarves who destroy Doriath. We have, of course, the heroism, right, in the Dagor Bragalach. But that's, but yeah, that's relatively little. So Nick, I agree. If we want to have, I'm totally game. I'm totally game to be thinking of some further dwarvish stories and thinking about the further development of, like, what is the overall story arc of, you know, Nogrod and Belagast, you know, through their destruction, at the end of the, you know, at the end of the War of Wrath, when the most of the Blue Mountains sink. But even beyond that, right? What are there survivors of, you know, those people, of, you know, you know, of those clans into the second and third ages? If so, where are they, and what do we want them to be doing? You know, what kind of role do we see them playing in the second and third age? Yeah, no. So Nick, I'm totally game with thinking about that big picture for the story of the dwarves of Nogrod and Belagast, so that we can be, I mean, I don't know that how much time we're going to have to, like, really develop full new plot lines. I mean, it would be almost all completely off script, again, apart from those few things. It seems to me the most important thing that we can do is kind of contextualize those few moments better.
You could have a bonus episode. It could be the Christmas special.
The Christmas special. Yeah. It would be like a bonus season, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that's certainly something we can talk about in season 5 as we're moving forward. But yeah. Hey, Nick was suggesting we could split the Baron and Luthien season into 2 and counterpoint it with an elf-dwarf romance. Yeah, everybody loves elf-dwarf romances. That went over a treat last time. So absolutely, I think that's a great suggestion, Nick, and we should totally consider that. Okay, I'm done considering that. But anyway, we can do something or other. Anyway, so I think, yeah. We can give him a name if we want to. Again, if we're gonna have him become something, and I suppose we should, because Telkar is a really big deal. So, you know, if this dude who is with her, in these episodes is her apprentice, you know, then he will become a big deal in the next generation. You would think. So that would be fine. Again, I don't think it's an absolute necessity for season 4. I don't think it need come up. I don't think he ever need be named on screen. I mean, it's, you know, he needn't be introduced by name. In fact, that could even be a thing, right? He has not yet made his own name, right? He is still a student, right? So he would only be introduced as like the, you know, the apprentice or the disciple of Telkar, because that's all he is yet. He's not made his own name yet. Maybe something like that, right? So he doesn't even need to be introduced. If he is introduced, he can be introduced indirectly, and nobody ever has to address him directly by name. So I don't think that would be difficult. But anyway, yeah. Okay, he's leading the dwarves that contact Caranthir. Yeah. Okay. Well, then he is going to need a name, isn't he? Yeah. Okay. Yep. No, that's fine. I'm pretty flexible. I'm not super picky about names. One of the many ways in which I'm very different from Tolkien. So I'm game for any suggestions you guys have on these things. The question of whether or not Maglor's wife is in Valinor or not. I like it. I like the idea of Maglor's wife, Maglor, being separated from his wife. Just mostly because that needs to be a thing that happens in more than one or two cases, right? So sure, yeah. I mean, I think that there can be, having Maglor as the more solitary and sort of melancholy character in this way, I think is fine. Now, again, this is me being completely extemporaneous about this. So if you guys have plans for Maglor's wife, if you really don't want her to be in Valinor, it's fine. Totally, I'm easily convincible on that point. I have to admit, I'm just saying that I find the idea of Maglor being alone and melancholy a little bit attractive, but it's fine. If you guys want her, we can have her. No problem. Yeah. Good. Do we need Anel's wife and son? No, I'm sure it's fine. But yeah, like I said, I don't have to. I'm not going to be able to make suggestions. But these are definitely good things for us to be thinking about. Caranthir's wife. What's Caranthir's wife like? I would think she'd be one of two things, right? She would either be, long suffering, says Marie. Yeah, she would either be quiet, patient, and, bossed around by her jerk of a husband, or and I'm not saying she has to be weak, but again, so she could either be, sort of that kind of. Just the quiet wife in the background, or she could be a really vocal character. But I would have to think if she were a vocal character, she would be almost as much of a jerk as Caranthir would. Yeah, exactly. Similarly gruff and strong-willed, or almost completely silent and in the background, I would think. Whichever you think works best for Caranthir, for the whole Caranthir's wife situation. Myself, I would incline towards long suffering. I mean, we can give her a cool story. Like, for instance, I would be totally down with a plan where Caranthir's wife is this, like, quiet, shy, introverted, long suffering, oppressed individual who at some significant point down the road, she's had it, right? And she stands up to Caranthir, walks out from Caranthir, opposes Caranthir. In one of the kinslayings, turns and fights on the other side because she is so fed up with that kind of thing. She follows him into the second kinslaying and stabs him. Nick, I was thinking of something a little more open than stabbing him in the back, but yeah, I mean, we know that some of the Feanorians turned again. No, that was in the third one at the in the Bay of Balor, but still, have her be, sort of meekly suffering in silence until the day that she stops meekly suffering in silence, would be, I think, probably my vote for. No, that's assertive, right? That would probably be my vote for Caranthir's wife. If we don't want Maglor's wife, if we want Maglor's wife to be in Middle Earth with him, I would think she would have to be musical too. I think that, or like, you know, I don't know. I mean, if she's a dancer to his music, you know, we'd have Maglor be the second greatest musician and her be the second greatest dancer, right? So, you know, poor Mr. and Mrs. Maglor playing, you know, always playing second fiddle to, you know, Dairon and Luthien. But I would think she would accompany him. You know, she would be a musician as well, would be my thought, if she's around. I'd vote for her to be absent, but like I said, I don't want to stand against. I'm not trying to put an obstacle in the way of a plot line you guys are already thinking of, if you're thinking of it. Yeah. Okay. Good. Anil's wife and son, I got nothing. I'm not really sure there. I think that is going to depend on how we're going to do the story of Anil and his struggles with the spell of Bottomless Dread. What role his wife and son would play would be really dependent on the way that we wanted that to play out for him. So, yeah. And I'm not really sure. I don't see really clearly of all of the spell of Bottomless Dread victims that we've thrown out there. Anil's is the one that I don't see as clearly, that I see least clearly, I should say. Okay. Passage of time. Well, I don't think we have time to talk about that one, ironically. Let me talk about this one briefly. Turgon's armor. Under Ulmo's direction, Turgon will leave a suit of armor in the throne room at Nevrast when he leaves for Gondolin. What should it look like? I think it should... and Maria, I forget who it was. Maybe it was you on the discussion boards who was talking about how the whole swan wing motif is going to be, you know, that's an armor motif that's never going to go away, right, after Gondolin, and you know, all the way down to the, you know, the guards of the Citadel in Minas Tirith. That was Harongil, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So I agree. That's really important. So I think my primary thought about this is that it should be reminiscent of, though of course a precursor to, a distant precursor to, not following after, obviously. Let me say it the other way around. I think there should be a reason why the guards of the Citadel are given swan wings on their helmets. I think that it should be a direct recollection of Tuor's armor. That is to say, my association with it, he should look like a sentinel. He is a watchman. So when he comes in, he's a message bearer, but he's not a courier, right? You know, he comes in and there's a way in which the suit of armor is sort of left, you know, and it's kind of looking forward. It's anticipating. It's like the suit of armor has been, you know, standing vigil there, you know, in Vinyamar for all that time. But Tuor comes to Gondolin. He comes as message bearer, but again, he's not just as courier, right? He comes delivering a warning. He comes announcing the danger that is, you know, I can feel a real confluence between the role of Tuor standing and delivering the message of Ulmo to Turgon, and, you know, the guards of the Citadel being an echo of that same kind of move, right? So to me, that's the important, which means I don't think the armor needs to be like heavy duty plate mail, right? It should not be necessarily knightly. He shouldn't look like a knight in armor, I think, when he's wearing it. But it should be like, as I say, the armor of a sentinel, and I do think that it should have a swan motif, especially since, think of the effect of that with the swans, right? He's following the swans there, and so when he sees the swan wing on the armor that the swans led him to, is, one of the fairly clear indicators that, yeah, this armor is for you. You're totally supposed to wear this. Yeah. Good. So that's my sense about that. Okay. So passage time, we'll come back to the passage of time, right? Let us suspend the passage of time, and we'll return to that at another point. Maybe we can talk about that at the beginning next time, because when we're discussing episodes 11 and 12, it's going to begin to be relevant, right? So maybe we can fold that into that discussion next time. On the subject of Wix, next time, so we're going to have a little bit of a delay because, again, I've got a conflict in 2 weeks. So our next session will be 3 weeks from today on September 12th. Thursday, September 12th at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and we're going to be discussing episodes 11 and 12. So yes, we will have the building of Nargothrond and Gondolin, the character assassination of Norn. Wow, okay, tell me how you really feel about that. The eviction of the petty dwarves, Thingol discovering Celeborn knew about the kinslings. We've got high drama in Doriath and with the engagement of Celeborn and Galadriel. That's the stuff that it's... That's the stuff that it's all going to have. Rhiannon, I love the idea of the armor of Tuor having an emerald upon its breast. Love that. Yeah. Yeah, let's make that happen. And on his breast an emerald. Love the idea. Cool. Yes. We should be remembering it. So just as we should be recalling Tuor's armor when we see the guards of the Citadel in Minas Tirith, we should also be recalling Tuor's armor when we see Aragorn with his Elessar. Right? Okay, cool. Awesome. Very good. So thanks everybody for joining us tonight. We will be back in 3 weeks on September 12th. At 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks everybody for joining us, and I will say as always, thanks for listening and Godspeed.
Although the theoretical budget of our hypothetical blockbuster may be unlimited, the production budgets of this and the rest of our fun alternative educational projects are unfortunately not. If you have enjoyed joining our production team, please consider donating at signumuniversity.org/fund.